Table Talk is not your typical D&D TTRPG podcast. We are not here to run you through our whole campaign.
We're here to talk about everything else in the space of Table Talk roleplay.
I'm your host, Alejandra Wilhelm.
And I'm also your host, Mariah Gresham.
And we're your tabletop roleplay girlies. All right, and we're live. Whoop, 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 whoop. So we are so excited for another guest episode. We have brought on the Slovenly Trulls Podcast, which we have both been huge fans of since we started our own podcast.
It's definitely been I've been binging it while I lift and stuff, and it's good content.
Incredible. Would you like to introduce yourselves, ladies?
Oh, well, first off, I'm so honored that you listen to us while you lift, because that means you're way more strong than either of us physically, and I respect the crap out of that.
Oh no, I'm chronically ill. I'm really just trying to beat back the severe exercise intolerance that I have because POTS.
Oh, yeah.
So
yeah. Oh, yeah. We have a friend who is basically about to be diagnosed with POTS. Like, we know for sure. So 100% get it.
Yeah. Shit's wild.
But hi, I'm Sade. Sorry. Yes, I'm Sade, the best host of the Slovenly Trulls Podcast.
The hostess
with the mostest. Yep. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I am Lissa, the best host of the Slovenly Trulls Podcast.
Ooh. Wow.
Can't even use proper grammar, so listen.
Yeah, well, proper grammar doesn't mean anything. You know, it's all about reputation and, you know, a competition between you and me.
Must assert dominance.
Yeah, exactly.
If you walk through the world with the confidence of a white man.
Exactly. Like, do what a white man would do. Would a white man send that DM? Do it.
Yeah,
you know?
do it. Yeah. They send that email, do it. Yeah.
Do it.
Yeah.
Pull that Kenergy and walk into a doctor's office and be like, I would like to perform surgery.
Yes, exactly. Yep. Just walk into the next hospital that you see and ask to perform brain surgery. And I'm sure it'll go very well.
Like, give me the brains.
Give me the brains.
Give me them.
I'm qualified.
I would like to spoop them.
Perfect. Well, would you like to tell us a little bit about your wonderful podcast for our listeners?
Oh, well, I think we're also probably going to talk about the origins too, but I'll just give like a TLDR of it, like what the podcast is, and then I'll let Lissa handle the origins because she's much better at telling that part. So our podcast is basically, we're a monthly podcast and we're a feminist D&D podcast, which is two words that for a while didn't go together, but we made them fit because we're stubborn. And we look at the very problematic past of D&D from original D&D, like D&D in the 70s all the way up till 5th edition. And we basically pick a topic every month, do a deep dive on it, contextualize it, like, hey, when was the time this was written? Who wrote this? What's their background? Just trying to understand why these things were written and trying to come at it with the benefit of the doubt. We have our own biases, obviously. We have a very 21st century feminist perspective, but we try to at least understand where they came from and also encourage people to also understand where they came from so we don't keep making those mistakes and do better and make our whole community better, make your personal tables better, wherever you are, whoever you are listening. Hopefully you could take something away from it. And also we cite our sources because we are nerds who like that kind of stuff. And
academics.
A pet peeve is when people say stuff and they like just cite and don't actually cite what they say. So we make sure to do that. So in case somebody tries to fact check us, we're like, nope, here's the passage. We got it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the way my little nerdy fucking brain was listening and noticed that y'all said we're citing sources and messaging Ollie this is awoken something within me. Of the part of me that very much misses academia and school. Yeah. And I'm I would like to peruse.
I think part of why we started citing our sources from the very beginning was because we started the podcast right after we both graduated. So we still have that academic mind. We both love writing essays. So we really find a lot of joy out of having cited sources and pride because we know that's just how our brain worked at the time, and we've kept that up. And I'm so glad we have, because it's such a good thing to have when you're online in discourse and you could just randomly cite a Dragon magazine article have you read this thing, and it's great. I love it.
You're like, hey, talk shit, get hit. Here's my link.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
like, here's the
basically.
archive.org. Like, if you really want to read, like, listen.
Yeah. Incredible. And then did you want to tell us about the origins as well?
Oh my gosh. It's a good
Um,
story, so I think Lissa should.
Yeah, I can. So actually, we harken back to.
Yeah.
There we go. We harken back to my university days. So I did my bachelor's here in the UK in London. So we are a transatlantic podcast, and we are in two different places in two different time zones, which is, fun for a podcast and technical issues.
That's a word.
But
yep.
later on about that later. But yeah, I did my bachelor's degree in graphic design, and we had this sort of project where it was all about like looking at hidden communities. And I thought, as a person who just found D&D, who just gotten that like obsession, or like not quite obsession, but like I just found the new cool thing that I can dedicate my entire life to, and hyper focus on.
Yeah, like hyperfixation.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
That D&D was my
It grabbed me by the
hyperfixation.
throat.
And I'm like, there's no better hidden D&D, or hidden community rather, than, like two groups of women playing D&D in their own houses who are not, who are not publishing anything. They're not like posting anything on social media, not recording anything. Like it was so... You had to be there in the time and place and in that location kind of thing, that I'm like, this is a hidden community. I'm in two groups of them already. That what if I just look at these two groups? And so I did. And so we had two groups of all women, and I began, like doing this investigation, asking people questions, looking at sort of the similarities between the two. And one of two things was very, like, overall, like, the big thing was that we were I made this joke that we were religious in that we took D&D very seriously, but we were also hailing Matt Mercer as a god. And yeah, that was one of the big, like, obvious things. And I'm like, I'm just gonna make it like, because I have this thing with religion. You may or may not know if you listen to the podcast. I have a very complicated relationship with religion. But yeah, I was like, we're just gonna go with this, that it's Matt Mercer is God, and we're all hailing him as this icon. And then the second thing that sort of
the triune.
Yeah. There was a holy trinity and everything.
Yeah.
Incredible.
And then the second thing was that I realized that after asking and talking to like all these players and asking them questions and like sort of really going into the minutiae of like comparing their characters to their personalities and like really doing this like in-depth investigation, because I'm obsessed with this topic. I noticed
if you don't psychoanalyze your friends, are you
exactly. And I just noticed that it kind of occurred to me that like, were we playing feminist D&D? Was like an all women's group something that was out of the ordinary? Now I know that like it's not necessarily out of the ordinary, but like to me as that like youngling of D&D who just started, and I talked to like a bunch of people online, and most of them, I think I did like a Twitter poll or something, and I was like, how many of you play in all women or like all sort of non-mask groups of D&D? And it was like a fraction of people were only playing in these groups that were not mixed, or that they were the only woman in the group, or like the only non-mask person in the group. And I was just like, okay, there's something here. And so I was like, okay, what can I bring it to this? And it sort of combined and boiled down to like the essence of what it was that I was like, okay, are we playing feminist D&D? Like, what does that feminist
mean?
D&D? Like, what does that mean? And then like doing a whole deep dive into like what themes we were talking about, what our characters were doing, like psychoanalyzing all the players and the characters. And I made like a whole publication thing about this for my degree. But yeah, they like doing questionnaires and like finding out these tidbits of information, which I have some of the information, like if you're interested.
100%.
I was
Both
about-
made faces at
I
each
was
other as
about
soon
to
as you said
say,
it.
I was like, one, send that shit to me. But
It's also beautifully designed,
It is-
first off, and like you can see
Oh.
when you like when she sends it over to you, you can see like it's so weird because this thing was published like a year before we started the podcast. I think almost to the not to the day, but like pretty close. Like you handed it in, and you can see like the color palette is super similar to like the color palette we use for the Slovenly Trolls, which is this like hot pink and black and sparkly kind of motif. And like you can see that in the design that she did. And I remember looking back at that and I'm just like, that's so cool and weird. Like who would have thought?
yeah.
Because this whole project took
I love
place
this.
like a year before. It's nuts. And then like we had like an
Yeah.
inciting incident during quarantine that were like where people were having a bunch of discourse about D&D online about some old like trudged up Gary Gygax quotes where he self-admitted to be a biological determinist. And we're like, what does that word mean? And then we looked it up. We're like, oh, that's not okay. And then like
That's bad information.
that's
to have
real
now.
bad.
Quick question. What is a biological determinist? Because I've never heard that.
Biological determinist is somebody who believes that somebody's innate talents, personality, that's tied to their biological sex or race. So if you are a woman, you are wired to like certain things. If you're a man, you are wired to like certain things. Same with any other race.
It's very Freudian.
yeah.
And like
Oh, you're on some
what you're
eugenics
born
shit.
with, how you're born is what you
Yeah.
are. And
Yeah, it's like in the discussion of like nature versus nurture, it's very much like
Nature.
your
Yes.
nature dictates how you will be. If you
Yeah.
are a certain
Yeah.
race, you will always end up like this. If you are a certain sex, if you are a certain sexuality, you will always
Yes.
be something. And like the problems that come from that was just like and like just reading some of the journal articles that were like linking some of these themes to biological determinism, we were just like, oh
yeah. And
my
how like
God.
it's like tied to eugenics, and we're like, wait, the creator of D&D is he literally with his full ass like put his full ass out there on a forum and said, I'm as a biological determinist, I don't think women are wired to play D&D, basically. And we're like, what? And so we like yelled at each other for probably a good week about this, like back and forth during quarantine. We're like, what is it? What the crap? I don't understand what's happening. And then there was also another quote going around on Twitter from one of the 3.5 edition D&D creators, Jonathan Tweet, that also said not something as extreme as biological determinism, but also at a little bit of a sexist statement like, oh, well, you know, the hobby is way more catered to men because of XYZ. And we're just like, well, that's stupid. It shouldn't be. And so we had like these discussions for like a week. And then we're like, I don't remember which one of us said it. I think it was me, but at this point, I don't know. I'm like, we should start a podcast or something. Like we like this is
Yeah.
we were having, because our conversation wasn't just yelling. At a certain point, we wanted to figure out, well, why was Gary Gygax the way that he was? Like somebody just isn't just born a biological determinist. Like what happened in his life?
We started doing research of our own accord to try and understand what was happening. And then at some point it was just like, because I was doing research on, like on the background of Gary Gygax or like this, and we found like nworld.com.org, and I went crazy because that's my favorite place to find information and look at misogynists arguing with each other. Not to say that all of them are misogynist, but it was
They're definitely not.
like an
They're definitely not, but a vast majority of some of the older articles or some of the older forums are a lot.
Yeah, but like just arguing amongst themselves where there's like a misogynist and a non-misogynist, and then they like argue amongst themselves about D&D misogyny, and I'm just like, I love it. But anyway, so like we started doing this like background research, and then at some point, like if it was Sade, I can't remember, but like she said like, should we do a podcast? And I'm like, well, we have all of this information. We were basically like already like trying to find the truth of what was happening in this one topic anyway.
Yeah.
And then like coming from like having just me literally finished my academic degree, it was like, okay, compile the sources. What can we do with this? We created an outline, and then we were like, okay, what if we just say this out loud? So it became each episode is like a verbal essay with sources, and then we structure it. So
except we swear a lot more. And, we're a lot hornier about it.
Yeah.
When we talk about Graz to the demon.
A slightly more opinionated, not like that, detached academic point of view. Slightly more opinionated in where we come from. I mean, we have to also be like funny and stuff like that. So we have to take stances.
Be entertaining, because it's so much easier to consume information when you're being entertained, right? Which is why
exactly.
Yes.
You watch a TV. I much rather watch a documentary than read an essay sometimes. But sometimes I will read an essay. But if it's written in such a dry way, I have so many opinions on why academic writing is awful. But this is not the time or place for it. But
yeah, it vastly depends for me on what it is and who's writing it. Like if it's a topic of interest to me, then I can plow through.
Yeah.
So I also spent a large portion of my life thinking I was going to be an attorney. So I got comfortable with dry writing real early. So I have a high tolerance for just fucking writing. But it's better if it cannot be that.
It is. And it can be, and it's so annoying that it's not.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely like academic writing is very similar to technical writing in that it prioritizes information delivery above all.
Yeah.
And like nothing else matters.
Yeah, but
and when you add in opinion and everything, then you lose credibility a lot.
I mean, you don't really need to add an opinion to make it legible. Exactly. I could give an entire lecture on how just one lesson for these academic writers in passive voice could just be change their life. Do not use passive voice, use active voice. Put your subjects at the beginning of your sentence. It's so basic. And the fact that it also just gatekeeps information. If you don't have high reading comprehension, if you have something like dyslexia or anything, you shouldn't be gate-kept away from information that should, further your learning. Communication is so key. Using the right rhetoric is so key. And you can absolutely do that without making it opinionated. But academia is this self-serving circle jerk of people trying to sound the smartest.
Yeah,
basically.
I mean, the inherent elitism of academia is not a soapbox. That will be the topic of the podcast. If I allow it to be.
Yeah, it's very because gatekeepy as well.
Yeah, it's very gatekeepy, and it's all a game.
Yep.
And it was a game that I was very good at playing, so it benefited me. But it was also as I watched, friends and other people around me go through it, I was like, this is not something that everybody is just built to succeed in. And this is not a framework that is accommodating for everybody to learn. And that sucks.
There was a period in time in college for me that am not the craziest academic, we'll admit, but there were certain classes that I really excelled in, and whenever we had to take some advanced history courses, I was psychology and psychology courses and history and other things. People love to come to study groups with me because one, I understood the subject very well, but me summarizing those topics to other people was very entertaining.
Yeah.
And I would make it, I would be sitting here talking to you about some psychology study in a very yassified way.
Right.
And I retain so much of this in an accessible
the ossification of awkward.
Yeah, I'm let me tell you about this little bitch and what study. And they're I love this.
I was during my master's, I was a seminar tutor. So I had my own little seminar group of little writing students, little writing babies, and they they didn't understand iambic pentameter, I remember. And also we were covering it in my master's program, just as a overarching hey, here's a reminder, you can write a sonnet or whatever. And we were also covering it, and I was also kind of teaching it. And they flat out did not understand what iambic pentameter was. And I just got up on my soapbox because, as Lissa and maybe members of our Slovenly audience know, I am pentameter is the way to my heart. So I like got up on my soapbox.
It's so good.
And
really
it's so
is
easy
good.
to understand, especially if you have a music background. It's very rhythmic. So I have a music
Yeah.
background. So I just got really, like, I was drumming on desks. I was like having my Dead Poet Society moment, like going around.
Mhm.
And this kids, like the students loved it. And I'm just like, oh, it also just comes down in academia to like having a professor or having a teacher, a lecturer who is passionate about the subject and who wants you to learn and isn't just lecturing at you.
Yeah,
Like, that's
absolutely.
Yeah.
any
Yeah,
subject, any
exactly.
subject. I don't care if it's law. I don't care if it's engineering. I don't care if it's the arts. Like having good teachers who want to be there and who want to teach and are not being like forced to do it is so important. Like it's so important.
Exactly. Yeah.
I love when we got off on the tangent of
100%.
academia. I love that. I love that for us.
Listen, the
I knew it
preface
was
is
gonna
like we
happen.
ramble first, and then like maybe you get some D&D
Yeah,
knowledge.
yeah,
I hope, possibly.
Yeah.
So we just got the shit in early. I
We
like to
name
think
our
we-
episodes in post.
in post.
Yeah.
It's very,
It's whatever the fuck comes
Yeah.
out.
yeah. But to very flawlessly and professionally segue.
Seamless transition.
The topic at hand, because the Slovenly Trolls specifically are so good at addressing it, is like feminism in that TTRPG space. But
Mhm.
also what I wanted to touch on is like getting into the role of a DM as a woman in that space, because I
Mhm.
believe now officially every single one of us, because
We
Miss
are.
Mariah ran her first game.
I ran my first Vampire the Masquerade. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it's especially interesting for me going into that because like I've played for a while and like the people I'm running Vampire the Masquerade, like a modified Fall of London
Mhm.
and I fucked myself because I didn't just follow the book and I let everyone make their own fun and spicy characters that have their own complex
I
backstories that
love
tie into
Beautiful.
like the whole court of London. So the first goddamn
Amazing.
session, I was like, cool, I have to, like, you're going to play your characters.
Yes.
I have to play
The court.
of fucking London. So that's great
Right.
for me. And,
Amazing.
but like the amount, and like I'm DMing for like 3 of my best friends.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Like I'm DMing for people that I'm inherently comfortable with and that are excited to be here. But the amount of anxiety I had throughout that process, like even when we were making characters, because the character creation, have y'all played any like World of Darkness games or like
No.
Vampire
Not
Masquerade
yet.
or anything
I
Not
like
really
that?
yet.
want
It's
to
on
play.
our list though. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, when I get more comfortable running, we can run like a little
Oh,
shot,
yay!
we can all make our
Yes.
Yeah,
archons
yeah,
and
yeah.
like
I would love it.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah,
please.
we can just I'll like you all be like god tier vampires and go blow up a city.
Oh,
I
or
think
yeah.
I
something.
just heard
Um,
just like have a moment silently to herself.
Let me-
Yeah.
Her brain
let me
just
live my
exploded.
Carmilla fantasy.
Yeah.
basically, yeah. But so like the character creation process, it's a really narrative focused RPG. So like we're roleplay hosts, so it's perfect for us, right? And like from the vibe of y'all, I think you guys are similar.
Mhm.
So, but the character creation process is very different than D&D and is very intensive. And so it's like you have to go through all of these like abilities and then skills. And there's like you kind of walk through all this whole setup process of like what your character did before they were embraced. And then it's like, cool, now what have you learned and developed and grown after you've become a kindred? And I think when we made Ollie and Bex's character, that process probably took
A cool like 5 to 6 hours, maybe.
yeah. And like the
Yeah.
whole time, like Ollie and Bex were
Having a great
vibing
time.
and having a great time and digging through my like 4 source books. And I was panicking. And it's like, 'cause I'm like, this is taking too long. And this is so fucking complicated. I don't know what I'm
Mhm.
doing. I'm not an authority on the own game I'm running. Like, this is stressful. Like, they're annoyed. I'm like, I'm not doing this effectively enough. Like, I shouldn't be running this
Mhm.
game. And then like I would periodically do that thing where you just throw out the apology that no one asked for to try to temperature
And I was
check
like,
the
I'm
room.
literally shopping for my abilities.
And I'd be like, I'm sorry, it's taking so long. Like as Ollie and Bex like lean up like gremlins from the book, and I'm like, yes, mother. And I'm like, cool. And like after the fact, they were like, yeah, no, like we weren't bothered by that at all. And I'm like, cool, so that was just me and my brain.
Well, I'm so
And
sorry to
then-
break it to you. I've been DMing for 5 years. That doesn't go away. You got to break. Like I wish
Yeah.
it did, but every time I DM,
Yeah.
there is one moment, and I don't know if this is tied to like being a woman and being a woman in society, a femme in society, and just like having all these, like having the need to apologize or feeling inferior or not feeling like you're up for the
need to
job.
be
I don't know if
perfect.
it's connected to that. It absolutely might be. But like I cannot tell you the last time I had a session where I didn't think that I royally fucked up. And like my players hate me, they hate this game, and I'm the worst. Like I wish I didn't feel that way, but I if anybody that's listening has a remedy for that, I'd love to hear it because it's
Literally same. Because, like, yeah, after we played the first thing, like, for my head, like, went through and everyone kind of had a vignette of their own, and then everybody met up and ended up in the court and kind of got interact with the prince and, like, ended up getting like mission to go on to get sort of her goodwill and be
I
recognized
didn't drop
as a
a dead deer
coterie.
carcass in the middle of court.
Which I was prepared for you to do. Because, like, Ollie's character, Revna, is kind of like a Viking that is just, like, bunch of fuck shit with that character. But,
Muscle mommy.
giant, like, 6'4",
Slavic
woman.
muscle.
Oh yes,
so
Mommy.
much woman.
Mommy, sorry. Mommy.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Literally. Yeah. So, but like after we finished playing, I was kind of like, so like, how did you guys like it? And they're like, yeah, we had fun. And immediately my brain was like, they're lying to you.
Yep, I've been there. Mhm.
And because it just, for me, of like, I know for a while, like in our previous campaign we played with that male DM, I had told him point blank, if I'm like, the first time I run anything, you can't play in it because I am too intimidated by,
because he was admittedly
like,
a very good.
he was
like,
a very
DM.
good DM, and like he often was the DM. So when he got fucking let out of the cage to be
Feral.
a player,
Feral
he
behavior.
would be a fucking menace. And I'm like, I can't.
That's pretty.
And like, that's understandable, yeah. But I'm like,
Your first time
I
DM.
can't have
deal
you.
with that, yeah.
Like, I can't
That's
do that.
valid.
And
Good
it's
for
just,
you for putting up that boundary, though. Seriously.
there was always like that sort of insecurity, and then I was like, okay, well, I feel comfortable like dipping my toe into doing this with Ollie, Bex, and Alyssa. But it was still, if I'm like, I compare how I feel like when Ollie runs our Strixhaven campaign, and like how I feel like you embody the NPCs, and like I'm not doing a good enough job, or I'm not being dynamic enough with that, or like whatever I built up in my head, because I'm also a writer, and so it's like fictional characters fucking live in my head all the time, and I have these very dynamic scenes, and it's easier for me to write them than be in the moment, right, and have to improv my way through it. And it's hard to not look at that and feel like it's lackluster.
Yeah, because I'm also a writer, right? So I have 2 degrees in fiction writing. So like I have just characters in my head all the time, and there's so much crossover between being any sort of, like, if you are a script writer, if you're an actor, if you're in any sort of artistic kind of thing where you need to think about these fictionalized beings, like there's so much crossover to being a DM. You already have like a half full, I would say, like toolbox of stuff. But there's so much control you have to let go of when you become a DM that it took me a while. It honestly did. I think it took me about like almost a year, maybe 6 months minimum, to really like, because I heard all of these things. I'd been railroaded by other DMs before. I had that urge. I'm just like, no, you're my characters in my world. I want you to do this. I know you're gonna have fun. You will have fun. And like, you know,
it's like, it's a good story, trust me.
Why are you going left? But like letting go of that, like, and having, who knows when that epiphany will come, but like it's a completely different side of your brain, because letting go of that control is, and some people can't do it, and that's completely fine. Like nobody's forcing you to DM. I think everybody should try it at least once if they play, just to understand, like, and empathize with the DM a little bit more, for sure. But like, especially as like I empathize with you as a writer, like what you're feeling is completely normal, and it will go away eventually. And also, like, comparing yourselves to other DMs, that took me a while too, and it took me maybe like over a year to do. But on top of that, like, you can steal stuff from other DMs, and when I learned that, I'm like, that's better. Like,
True.
So if you
it's highway robbery out here. I've been snatching left and right.
It's encouraged. Like, I steal stuff from like Matt Mercer, Brendan Lee Mulligan, Abria Iyengar. I steal stuff from them. I steal more stuff from the DMs that I have. So I have from my female DM, from my male DM, I steal from all of them. And like everybody has their own style, and you will have it, and you will have a completely unique style that is unique to you. So that, and then hopefully build up some amount of, you know, confidence after that to be like, yeah, I'm not my friend, you know, Susie. I'm not Matt Mercer, but I have my own style and my players are having fun. And that's literally the only thing
that's
that
all
matters.
that matters. Yeah.
I think that like finding your specific style is so important, because like I remember I had the similar issue, because again, I had the same DM. I also was like, hey, Chief, you're not sitting at my table if I ever pick up a fucking DM screen.
Valid.
I'm so sorry.
Completely valid.
At least not for the first few games,
Not
because like
until
I
you
need
get your feet under
to
you.
feel good about it.
Yeah.
Which may have been a warning sign to us if we weren't comfortable enough to have them
There were a lot of warning signs in retro. If I don't trust someone not to fucking humiliate me in front of a group of our friends, it's probably something there.
Probably something. But yeah, and like I remember I had that issue of like I compared myself so much to him, as well as like other like Brennan Lee Mulligan and
Right.
Yeah.
and
Like
stuff
pie in
that.
the sky kind of.
And I remember I even used to have like I was very self-conscious playing, like I couldn't have a male character because I felt weird about me not being able to have a masculine voice.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm kind of like that.
It got in my head, so I was like, how am I ever gonna DM if I can't like have a diversity in that?
Right.
Yeah.
And I remember the first time I watched Abria play, like on Dimension or like DM on Dimension 20.
Changed everything.
And like
Too. She made me
she changed
so
everything.
much more confident as a woman, as somebody who can't do voices. Like I'm like,
yes.
And then when she got all that hate,
And so
I was just like, you motherfuckers, stay away from her. Like
I would brawl in the streets for that woman.
I would
And
die
she doesn't
for
know who I
her.
am, and I don't care.
Like I would hunt her haters for sport.
Oh my god! I think she liked one video of mine on TikTok, and I probably exploded.
Oh my god! How have you ever recovered? Did you frame that notification? Like,
I have a screenshot of it. 100%. I screamed about it to my friends. We had a lot of videos that like went like semi viral and got like enough traction there that I think I got on some public eye.
Yeah.
And like I remember seeing the notification, I was like, surely this is a fan account.
Right.
Surely.
Yeah.
It's like a Bria Iyengar 1.
Yeah.
Like-
And I look at it and I'm like, no, that's her.
No, that's her.
That's her.
That's the whole my god! I'm so jealous and also so happy for you.
Yeah, screamed. But like she changed everything for me. And like I was like, oh, okay, like I don't have to do the character voices. I don't have to be a master of accents. But what I can do is like change inflection and change gestures
And like
change
physical
energy.
acting is a huge part of it too. And your
intonation and like how you speak. Like I played two characters simultaneously in the two groups, and like we had a crossover.
Oh, cool.
And I was always afraid of like how people would be able to tell like which character was which. But then, you know, I brought it up after one of those sessions, you know, after this crossover. And then people were like, oh no, we could tell because like your whole body changed when you played, because I was playing like a very femme presenting like tiefling. And then this very like gruff half-orc barbarian. So obviously they had like completely different like personalities, like and like ways to speak,
like physicality
and like apparently it's just like when you embody that character with like the gestures, the mimicking their speech patterns, maybe they say things in a different way. Like my half-orc barbarian like would speak less, but when she spoke with a purpose.
Yes.
So like it naturally comes out, and you can do those changes easily, and it doesn't have to be like you make an Alvin the Chipmunk voice and suddenly like you're changing character, and then you have like this Australian accent suddenly, because I would find that so difficult to be able to like get my brain to switch gears, especially if like two characters talking to each other, to be like, this is Alvin, and then going like, hey, hey down under, hey down under,
and not just be like Looney Tunes.
Yeah. I remember when I was DMing, like I was really nervous about that too, because my wonderful, amazing group of idiots whom I love so much, you know how groups do. They adopt NPCs that you did not fully flesh out. That always happens. They're just like, oh, here's this human himbo guy who has black hair, and he's just here, and he's the quote unquote half brother of a halfling. Get it? Joke. But he's like a full human, but they're brothers. How does that work? And then one of my players was like, ooh, pretty human. I'm like, oh shit.
Yeah.
And then I
like, what's his sign?
Basically, yeah, she was all over him, and then she actually didn't end up with him. One of the other players did. It's a whole story. I could tell.
And you're like,
to you guys later.
Man,
but
you know we're in a fantasy world, and you could go for any other race.
I know,
but
apparently there was just something. But also, the one who originally went for him, she did have something in her backstory where she was a drow. She fell in love with a human, so it was my fault. Honestly,
she was like, and
my
also,
fault.
you made him a
And
himbo. Like
I
who
didn't
doesn't
even
love a
realize I
himbo?
did. When I first started playing him, I don't think I had his personality fully out. But then when you guys started taking him places, I had to roll his stats, and the poor bean rolled a 9. And I'm like, where do I put that? And I'm like, well, I think it'd be hilarious to have a warlock who's real stupid. So that's what I did. I put it in his intelligence. And then I was really
sometimes the dice take an NPC from you and run with it.
Yeah, and like
Truly.
they just wanted to travel with him, which was great. They were connected to an NPC. I'm like, okay, I got to flesh this guy out. But I was really nervous because I'm like, I'm a woman. I can't do voices very well. Like, I don't know how to do this. I'm not giving him an accent. Like, will they be able to just see like this character or me? Because again, as a writer, it's way easier, in my opinion, and when I write, to be like, this is this guy's personality. You don't hear my voice talking and forming the words. You read it on the page. But then one of my players, she just made a comment about, like, I think during the game, and I think this was when we got a little bit tipsy on moonshine. I think this was that same game.
Incredible.
And she made a comment just like, I can always tell when, because I think I maybe made a comment like, oh, I'm sorry, like, do you know if I'm the NPC or this? And like, I can always tell you're Niall, which is the name of this character, because whenever you talk through him, you put your hands on your hips and do a hero pose. And I'm like, I do? And she's like, yeah, like your back straightens up. You like have this very like weird, funny
like all my
pose. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that. It's not realized.
That's incredible. I find it so interesting that like that is like a pretty universal like insecurity of like the voices and stuff. But then when you think about it, it's like, yeah, but also I'm looking at these male DMs and like, yeah, they can do voices, but like they by no means sound like a woman when they're trying to sound feminine and they're playing feminine characters.
They just have the male audacity to try it more than we do.
They just have the male audacity, and I'm looking at myself in the mirror and I'm like, why can't that be me? And I was like, bitch, it is you.
Bitch, it is you, but
like,
the patriarchy sucks and it's making us feel inferior.
Like there is like that except I feel like Matt Mercer is an exception because he is a sound machine.
He's a voice actor. The whole cast of Critical Role are voice actors.
That's what they do. They
They
make sounds.
Exactly.
They make interesting sounds.
And to be fair, they put that right on the tin, and like it's like the second thing they say, where it's like we do this as a profession. But yeah, it's funny how we will all compare ourselves.
Yeah. But it's like even then they are voice actors, but like you listen to Matt Mercer play a feminine character or a feminine presenting character, and like yes, his voice softens and goes higher, but like
it's not a woman's voice.
Yeah, and like and we have the same ability to like make our voice get a little gravelier and a little bit lower. We're just insecure.
Yeah. We just don't have, honestly, this is advice to all femme presenting DMs out there. Just have the male audacity. If you want to do that voice, try it. Like your group will not, if you have a good group, if you have a great group of people, they will not judge you. They'll be your cheerleaders. Like it'll be good. You'll be okay.
Just walk through the world like a Michael.
But do it in a voice that you can actually talk in. Because let me tell you, we recently recorded a promo for our podcast, and I had to do this like very gravelly voice. I could not keep doing that voice, even if I tried, and like keep a straight face and actually make fully fake sentences.
Can you like give us an example or like
a little sample?
Let me. I am Kaloka.
Incredible.
Alrighty.
So yeah, it like I cannot fully like make sentences with that voice. So choose a voice that you can actually use and like communicate.
It's achievable. It's comfortable.
Yeah. Or they just have to have like I am Groot energy, where it's just like they say 3 words.
Yeah. I mean, I'm literally DMing a Strixhaven campaign, so I a metric fuck ton of NPCs between like professors and other students and whatever shenanigans are going on. So I'm switching so much that I'm like, I look at my players, I'm like, hey, yo, if you're expecting accents, if you're expecting a lot of different shit, it's not happening because I have to switch so often. Right. But I do think like y'all have commented that I do that like shift in posture.
You do. Yeah. We don't even notice it at all.
Yeah. And then like I think I do have the benefit of being a switch.
It's also that. Yeah, you're just a very dominant woman.
I am a dominant woman. And so whenever they're talking to like their male potential love interest,
yeah,
that energy does shift.
You would say some
just
wild shit.
Wild shit. And I'm like, I know my girls. I know what they like to read. I know they like these toxic, morally gray men.
Oh my
God,
God,
give it to them on a silver platter.
God. Yes.
And I'm like, both me and my character need a fucking moment.
Yeah, I'm like, how many love triangles are we on? Add more.
Yes.
Yep. But all those years of reading like fanfic and smut and just use that shit.
Like, my games are a glorified dating sim.
Basically,
with like
I love that.
plot somewhere in there.
Yes.
Which that's what that is what Fall of London will be too, and why it's a very modified Fall of London, because we can't have we need time for like horny shenanigans, and we can't have, so like we're tabling the Inquisition coming to like find all the fucking different
priorities.
Like, I want my girly pop drama with like my gay vampire husbands and like everyone trying to take down the court and all that good shit.
Yeah.
My Viking does need to go slut herself out with every woman.
Listen, that's another good trait to have as a DM. Know when to put the main plot on the back burner because your players just want to bang some people or like want to romance somebody, want to chase this side quest, whatever. You could put it on, the back burner for a little bit just so people can have a cheeky fun time.
For sure.
Like throw a rave, who knows? Like have fun.
Literally. Like I feel like it's a lot, like, and I thought I would have the problem where like when the first time I DM'd, I would have too strict of a plot in mind, and I would lean toward the temptation to railroad. But because of like my fucked up victory or death orientation toward a lot of things, I went all the way to the opposite side. And I said, I'm not going to plan jack shit. We're going to improv all of this, which is also probably why it was anxiety inducing for me to run. Because like I didn't even, like, we're operating on a new system. I know the most about the system, but none of the other none of us have played it before. And so I'm like, I don't have copies of people's character sheets. I'm like, I don't know what fucking what your good dice pools are. And I'm like trying to figure out what's happening and get you into some situations that can kind of fucking make sense. And literally the night before, I was looking at the Fall of London book, and I'm like, okay, how can I unfuck this? And then after we played, we left it at a point where I'm like, okay, I think I know how I can get us moving toward some of the bigger NPCs and plot stuff. But like, I was so unprepared to run that first goddamn. I threw myself like fuck a frying pan. I just went directly into the mouth of hell. We could not have told,
if I'm going to be honest with you.
I have such a hard time believing that, because I could not have been flying more by the seat of my ass.
Listen, I get that. But like when I tell you, like we had such good like individual vignettes that you like orchestrated. You ran us through like the core and like what, like bringing us all together. And I loved every little interaction that like our character has. I get it. The imposter syndrome is real, and we're going to get into that.
Yeah, it's just.
But like, we had a great fucking time, and I'm so looking forward to like all the wild ass vampire shit, because especially our coterie is a mess. It's a fucking mess.
Yeah. DMing is a completely valid like strategy to DM too. Like I just ran into like a TikTok that was talking about like how somebody like became an improv DM because like they were having such a difficult time being somebody who planned everything, and even like being in the middle of being improv and plan wasn't their jam, and they just went fully improv because that's just what worked for them. So like there's so many different styles that you can do, and you will definitely in like your early DMing career, whatever, like stint, try on so many different like types to find the right fit for you. And then
100%.
It's always like do whatever brings you joy as the DM, because your fun is just as important.
Is just as valid.
Yeah, everybody. And I think like
Everybody should be having fun.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I would recommend, if you've never just fully fucked off for a session and said, let's see what chaos occurs, it's interesting. I don't think I'd recommend doing it the first time at the end.
Noted.
That's a bit much. Probably like, yeah, just don't fuck yourself completely.
Yeah. I'm finding it interesting because like I in my experience DMing, I kind of became a DM out of necessity, because our group, had our fallout with our respective, like our previous DM, and we love all as a group to play at a physical table. We're not like, I have some online games, but we definitely have.
I have one too, but I'm much more invested in my in-person.
We have a
games.
big love for like an in-person game, and none of us were DMs, but like out of the four of us, like I was probably like the most experienced.
Ale and I were the
Mariah.
most experienced, and then Ale owned like all the fucking books.
I did buy all the
guess
books just to
it's
look
you,
at them because they
Chief.
were pretty. And so I was like, well, if anyone's gonna run it, I think I've already invested in this hobby, monetarily speaking. And I was definitely like feeling comfortable like around y'all and stuff. And like, yeah, I think I definitely did some like a lot of planning for like our one shot and then our first official session. And then after a couple sessions, I was like reading the room, and I like, because of like the, you like you said, you can never plan for what your chaos goblins are gonna do at the table, and it'll start taking you down different paths that you didn't account for. But like some cool stuff comes out of that. So eventually I started taking note of that and like restructuring my games a little bit, where I have kind of a format in this respect of like, I give them vignettes of like, what do you do in class? What do you do in your free time kind of thing? And then there's like, they can kind of fuck off and do whatever they want. And I put little plot hooks here and there, and they just pursue what they want. So I kind of have taken a structure where it is a lot more improv-y. Yeah. I've relinquished a lot of control. I have an overarching, like, I know where the plot is potentially going and like different things. I've got it, like, I got the big bullet points.
Yeah. Like, where certain beats are. Like,
I know
when
where
we're gonna
point A
hit
is,
certain
I know where
things.
point B is, and whatever's going to happen in between, I kind of leave it up to y'all and I adapt to that. That's taken a lot of stress off of me, especially when prepping, because I just have to make sure I know the big points. If there's like a combat I might have to prep, I prep that, and like outside of that, it is what it is. And I like I don't know, like I have not had a moment, we call it DM drop, kind of like sub drop, where post session you get that like moment of like you're hypercritical, you're second guessing whether people had fun, you're thinking you didn't do as good a job, and then like we mentioned, our old DM had that pretty much every session, and we had to give a lot of validation and reassurance that like we did in fact have a great fucking time. Yeah, we used to play fucking 8 to 12 hour sessions,
especially in that Ravenloft campaign.
And like loved every second of it. And we'd be like, the very next morning we'd be like tapping our fucking wrists, being like, can I have another hit, please?
Like I had to drive.
Do you have some more?
Everyone else lived in Houston, and I live in Austin, so I'm like, I have to drive 4 hours home. However,
if we technically play from like 8 a.m. to noon, I'll still get home at a decent amount of time. But I have yet to experience that, not to say I never will. But I think relinquishing a lot of that control took a lot of pressure off of me. In that respect. And then I think I'm also like, I remind myself a lot of times during the session to like, while y'all are having your moments and I'm kind of sitting here like watching reality TV play out before my eyes.
Those are the best moments.
I make sure to have like pretty intentional moments to kind of take a little step back and acknowledge that like I'm watching y'all and you're actively having fun in that moment. And so that gives me a lot of validation towards the end of the game, because like y'all also check in on me. You're like, hey, are you okay? Like, are you feeling good?
Yeah,
like,
we check in on you after.
Because like I had those moments of like, notice that your players are having fun. Notice that they're laughing. Notice that they're crying. Notice that they're like, really invested in that moment, in that story, and in each other's stories, and like use that to validate your insecurities and your experience.
And that definitely helped me after running that first session as well. And I also think, like many things, therapy is a great tool. And so it's like, I knew I was going to be hypercritical of myself. And so like when I wasn't shocked, and then it's that thing of like, well, if you ask and people say they enjoyed it, and you assume, since these are your best friends, that they're not lying to your face, then you have an obligation to believe them and not like rake yourself over the coals for an imagined error.
Yeah.
And so I think that like I would not have had the ability to do that probably, you know, a few months ago, a year ago, but now I'm at a point where I can be like, okay, I will believe people when they say I did a good job or that they enjoyed something I did.
I think a lot of it is like, especially coming from, well, I guess for me, it was like always having to pretend to be this like very meek and proper woman in society, and like that gender role that was placed upon me by my parents. I get this anxiety of like, am I doing the proper thing? Am I playing the proper part? And it's always that like anxiety of overthinking, what is my part? Where am I supposed to be? Who am I supposed to be? And instead of like just being me. And finding that empowerment to be like, no, I will take your words at face value. If you have a problem with me, you will bring it up to me, and I'm not going to read into it, because I went to like a self-improvement seminar, which is partially the reason why I got into D&D.
I think that was like an inciting incident for you, because that's how you met one of our DMs.
Yeah, but I went to like a self-improvement seminar where essentially you do therapy together in a group setting with like a bunch of strangers, and it's very interesting, and like it's just a weekend thing. And one of the only things that I came out of it, well, one of the big things that I came about from that seminar was essentially just if you don't know, ask, and don't assume that you know other people, because I am like this overthinker. I will overthink the most like meaningless things and consider like A, B, C possibilities and go to like from the best possibility, but more focus on like the complete worst possibility. And like, and it's kind of like doom, like thinking about the doom and gloom of everything. And like that seminar just kind of made me come to the realization that, okay, things may not just be that way. And I can just, you know, be in the current moment and accept what is being told to me. Like, I can overanalyze people for hours if I wanted to. Like, did he mean this? Did he mean that? Did she actually mean that? Are we actually friends? Is she just a backstabbing bitch, you know? Like, I don't, like, I could spend like years, like, over-analyzing people and pretending to know where they're coming from. But, like, that's just, I guess, my hyper focus, but like just accept things as they are. And I think that's like been such a freeing thing, especially for me, to like just be like, if you have a problem with me, tell me. If you don't, I will assume you don't. If you don't like me, just don't reach out. Like, and we'll keep going.
Want to like just pause it. Like, I wonder if anybody eventually will like do some sort of study on female identifying DMs, just to see like if this is like, I've talked to all of my DM friends of all, you know, throughout the whole spectrum, and every single one of them has some sort of doubt. But I wonder if women are more willing to, you know, talk about that more than men usually are, because we just did a couple episodes where we really deep dived into like toxic masculinity and how it's not only affecting, you know, women, it also affects men really harshly because of, you know, how society is, you know, puts us into this binary, and you have to be this way and this way. And it's not that, you know, it's only one gender feeling this way. It's that we're probably just more open to talking about it because we're more open to talk about our feelings, because society has kind of conditioned us in a way to be like, women have feelings.
It's more acceptable.
Yeah. I think it's also women in general have that community with each other where we've instilled like it is okay for us to open up to each other about our
Yes.
emotions, and men and masculine presenting people typically
I
do not.
remember like I had to like there was a very serious family situation like probably 10 years ago now, and the first thing I did was open up to all my friends about what was happening. Like I was just like, I need to tell people about this, and I need to tell them like how I'm feeling, and I need to tell them so that they know if like I'm feeling a certain way or if whatever, like I need to tell them, like so they are understand we're on the same page. I have a younger brother, he's 2 years younger than me, and I had to like push him to tell one person. I'm like, you need to tell somebody what's happening right now because it's going to emotionally affect you. Like it is going to happen.
Yeah.
Like we talked about it, like we cried about it, like he talked to me about it. I'm like, you talk to me about it, I will always be here for you, but you need to talk to somebody else about it. And all of his friends at that time were other men, and it took him a month to like open up to one of his male friends to say what was going on. And that just reminds me of that. It's just like anybody is capable of talking about stuff at the table. Anybody is capable of saying that you're not perfect all the time, and it's okay not to be perfect all the time. But sometimes you just need that push and that community. And I mean, that's what hopefully the D&D community is becoming, because now D&D and tabletop games are so much more open because people feel, and in marginalized groups, people feel so much better and more accepted because we're more vocal now because of, XYZ happening in the real world. And like, we're kind of fed up with stuff.
Right.
And we're like, fuck this.
Yeah.
We're going to say our opinion and you're going to fucking listen.
A purple-haired elf.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
we're in our anti-capitalist orca.
Yeah, we're anti-patriarchy, anti-capitalist, anti all of this stupid postulating that's going on in the world that doesn't fucking matter. Like it's just and like building this community within D&D just to if you love, I love D&D, but we've been getting a lot of criticism recently online, like saying if you like D&D so much, why do you criticize it so much? Like,
why are
just
you
play
critiquing
Pathfinder
it and reviewing it?
Yeah, and I'm just like, critique doesn't equole hate. Like, are you?
No,
I don't.
Critique equals
Yeah,
care.
critique does equal
because
care.
if you didn't care and you didn't enjoy it, then you wouldn't consume it. It wouldn't affect you.
Yes.
You wouldn't
like
it wouldn't. You wouldn't be concerned about the environment or how people feel or how people are affected by things. But because it is part of your life and you're invested, then yes, you have an obligation to make the spaces, at least I think you do, make the spaces you were
better.
in
Leave it better than you left
healthy
it,
and better and welcoming and accepting.
And there's a big difference between like critique is always coming from an aim in its nature to
improve,
make the thing better, improve, and find the places where it could be better. And there's a difference between critiquing something, hoping to, activate change and have it grow and have it become better, and then just like a plain old hateful comment.
Attacking,
it's constructive criticism versus critiquing just to hear yourself speak. Which I think
I feel like there's this inherent like gatekeeping history in like, and this toxic masculinity in like nerd culture, where if you are anything but masculine and you are trying to enter this kind of geek masculinity, which is the nerd community and the gaming community and probably TTRPGs too. So if you are anything but like what they deem as acceptable to upkeeping their kind of masculinity, you are automatically like attacking, and they go on the defense mode. Like change is bad. I know from their point of view. This is their safe space because they are not, the whatever dominant masculine that, these hyper sports people are, that are the typical images of what is like considered traditional masculinity. So yes, we understand this is your space and we're trying to enter it, but like change is difficult, change is scary, but like it's like it's not a bad change. We're trying to share the thing that you love. We're trying to come in and like rejoice in the thing that you've built and like share it. And like that's what they're not understanding is they think that we're attacking, whereas we just want to join and share. Like just because you got there first doesn't make you any better.
Don't become the villain.
The person coming in. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like that stereotypical, I've been playing video games since I could conceive a video game. But like that's stereotypical of like gamer guys who are like, man, I would love if I could find a girl that plays video games. But then the environments you create for women in the space are so volatile and uninviting.
Any woman who plays a game on like Twitch, who's in the Twitch sphere, I have the most massive respect for them as a person.
Awesome.
Because I tried an MMO once when I was pretty young, to be fair, so my memory of this might be different, but I remember how I felt. I don't remember what was said, but I entered an MMO. They found out I was a woman and it didn't go well. So that is the universal experience. You see these clickbait videos on YouTube even now where, men pretending to be women online so that they can see what women experience, even though women have been saying this for fucking years, but you have to experience it yourself to really listen. Like, create an open environment. I just don't understand why people don't want to grow together, because the more people are in your hobby, and I mean, I hate thinking about this from a capitalist perspective, but the more like money goes into it, the more people are playing what you love, you're going to get more of that thing, right? You're going to get the next video game. You're going to get another TTRPG book, But
it's a power struggle. I feel like what it is like they are in their power in this community. There are these other people coming in that are inherently, in their mind eye, changing the community. So the power is going to change. What they have deemed as power in their current hierarchy is going to change when we have people who are not like these people coming in. The power dynamic's going to change, and geek masculinity is not going to be geek masculinity anymore, because there's not going to be just masculines there. So they're, in their mind's eye, they're losing power to the people coming in, and that's, I feel like, you get that.
And it's that same concept of society, right? It's just like the people, like, think of it like you're like these people at the top, these usually masculine identifying white men. They're at the top. They're at the top of this. They're on this platform, and everybody else who has their own platform, any marginalized person who doesn't fit into that group is in their own platform. Nobody wants to bring that platform down. They want to rise up their own platform so that we're all equal. Like, nobody is trying to tear you down just because that's the way that they've been taught to get power themselves, by tearing other people down, by, closing off their emotions so they don't feel bad when that happens, like by, not embracing your emotional side, by just, having your eye on the prize and don't let anybody get in your way. Like, that same mindset will like kick in and be like, oh, people are trying to drag me down, when literally they're just like, their hands are on like the little mechanism that's just trying to get up their own platform to get on your level. Nobody's tearing you down, man. Like, nobody wants to do that. And it extends to every part of society, but you see it just, it's such an interesting case study, like in geek culture and even in our little micro community of TTRPG, because you see it everywhere. And we say it on every one of our episodes. Like, the big bad evil guy is not Gary Gygax. The big bad evil guy is not like Jonathan Tweet. It's not Ed Greenwood, who created the Forgotten Realms. They're not the villain here. The patriarchy is. The capitalism is. Like, the Vietnam War is.
The way that Brennan...
Like, this is...
the way that Brennan Lee Mulligan is about capitalism is how I am about patriarchy.
Oh my God. I'm using that. Like, yes. Like I feel about the patriarchy what Brendan Lee Mulligan feels about capitalism. Absolutely. Like, it's so real.
It's also, I think the big pushback also is like, we had an episode where we covered like the differences between like masc and femme and queer like tables, and also like having mixed tables and what that entails and how that affects the game. And I think the big pushback is also like for DMs who have probably done this for a while and they've only DM'd for like male or mass presented people, is that you have to shift what is focused in order for your all your players to have fun. And like at a mixed table, I like to think of it as like when I've seen the shift happen of like being the only woman to suddenly it's like maybe 50-50.
Yeah.
We just had it in my Monday campaign where there used to be only one woman. Then I joined and I could tell that like the story started to shift a little bit. And then my one of our players, Alyssa, also joined. So now it's 50-50.
Yeah.
And like the shifts in the dynamics there, but it's all positive because it's like that whole group is very super combat oriented and like they're so skilled. There are specific classes and like I referenced this before, they helped me grow in my combat prowess and stuff, but also the story is like just as important and has a bit of that element. And I think for DMs it's like you might have people that are they just want to be murder hobos and run through a dungeon and collect
that's
loot.
that's a valid way to play.
And that's valid. Yeah.
But if you start having a mixed table and suddenly like the dynamic has shifted, the pushback might be like I've gotten comfortable with the way that I'm running games.
Yeah.
And now I have to start adapting and catering. And that can be uncomfortable.
Change is scary. You know?
Change is scary. I've also had like experience where we have this place called it's an organization called Barhaven here in Houston that they host one shots at bars every day of the week.
God.
Like from 6 p.m. forward. And it's like a group of DMs. They set up at tables. You show up with a level 3 character sheet. You sit with strangers. You drink. You have a one shot. It's a great fucking
God,
experience.
that's amazing.
It's
We
incredible.
need to go, like, the
and
next
like
one
at the
in
end of the
Houston.
night, you have like you pick a player at your table that you've chosen to be the VIP, and you pick someone else to be their bard. And so then the bard has to basically speak to the crowd about why their player is the VIP of the night, and you win a prize.
Aww.
Every time my group has gone, we've won because they put me and like the other DM that we used to play with as the bards, and we are very extroverted, very
Yes.
outspoken,
Sure.
very charismatic
Like,
individuals.
Saleswoman.
Yeah, and so everyone, is like, this is this person, and they did all these great things, and I'm like, I'm grabbing a physical chair and standing on it in a bar, screaming about my friend.
Yeah.
And like giving a full standing ovation, and they're like, "Well, clearly it's this." One.
Obviously,
I'm like,
the
I will be
showmanship.
long dead in the
Like,
ground before someone outperforms me. I forget where I was even going with that.
Like different like group dynamics and stuff.
Yeah.
Really.
Different group dynamics, yeah. And so like, wow, I really lost my train
Same, I fully.
because I started talking about that. But yeah, in general, I think it's just the shift.
Yes.
In that like being uncomfortable, and that's the pushback.
Yeah.
And
if you're at the right, I also think if you're at the right table, the shift is a good thing. So what I was going to say was I kind of had a little bit of an example of that. So maybe about a year and a half ago, I joined a new table, which was my first ever. Well, not really my first ever. After my iffy first endeavor with like a mixed table in my adulthood, because I played D&D way back in the day. I don't even remember what we did in 3.5. Like I was 10, 12, something like that. I don't remember what happened. So like I had an iffy first experience as an adult with a mixed table, and then my next experience was with half the people I knew for like 10 plus years, and then 2 other people I didn't know very well. And it was a mixed group, and I was kind of the newbie in this friend group. And I evened out. No, actually, I made it a female-dominated table, technically, because it was even. So the DM and had 1 male player and 2 female players. So it was like 50-50. And then I was the shift to it being 3-2. And I came in, and I remember the DM literally like pulled me aside, and he's just like, before you came to my table, nobody had ever had sex in any of my games ever. And nobody ever got laid. And I'm just like, oh my God, I did the woman thing. I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. But, like, do you want me to like turn off the horn? Because like, I don't even know where that came from. That's just what the vibe was. I was just going with the vibe, and I just really wanted to sleep with that dwarf. I mean, listen. And he's like, and he put up a hand. He was like, it's a great thing. I just wanted you to be aware that is what you did to me at this table.
I just wanted you to know that that's what you
came.
contributed to this friendship.
Right. And we had like we had the X card. We had everything like laid out, like here are my no things. And if that happened, we were okay to put up the X card. So, and nobody ever did. So when he pulled me aside, I'm like, oh my God, like somebody forgot to put up the X card. I went too far. I feel so bad. But like it was embraced after that moment. And then everybody became uber horny after that. And it is the best.
Are you gonna
Like,
Open
Release
the
the
floodgates.
floodgates.
I
Literally,
literally did. I don't know how, but because I just thought I was just doing what I usually do at my other tables, which are all female, or like we all identify as female. Like, so I was just bringing in that feminine, horny energy from that to a new mixed table. And they fully embraced it. They were just like, yeah, this is great. We'd never done this before. It was a little bit to get used to, but honestly, like it was the best decision for that table in that moment. So like having change doesn't have to be a bad thing. It just really depends on who's playing and what their mindset is, and if they are open to that kind of change, letting people of other genders and sexes in, letting people in that are other races than them. Like just a diverse table is a better table in my mind.
Absolutely.
And I just want I just want everybody to understand that. Like you don't have to, but I'm just saying like there is an inherent like benefit you get from getting all of these different perspectives. Not everybody is in an area and like where diversity is like a big thing. Like if you're in a predominantly Black area, if you're in a predominantly white area, if you just have friends of a certain race or identity, like everybody's table is different. But I just think that you should, be encouraged to broaden your horizons whenever you get the opportunity to. And the fact that people just flat out don't agree with that is baffling to my 21st century feminist brain hole. So that's kind of why we do the podcast too, is just like trying to understand that perspective and where that comes from. And like, is there even a chance to like change their mind maybe? Or is there a chance for us to be more empathetic to that mindset? Which there has to be some sort of middle ground. Like we can't just all hate each other.
Sure.
Like
Absolutely.
it's exhausting.
No.
We need nuance
100%.
on the internet.
Yeah.
We know it doesn't exist, but we can try. God damn it.
But we want it.
We need it.
Exactly. Well, like you cannot be part of the problem, right?
Yeah.
Like you can make an attempt to create
At least try.
a slightly better environment.
Exactly.
You reminded me what my original point was on that Barhaven tangent. So we sat I ended up going one of my traditional moves in dating was like I have D&D prevalent on my dating profile. People are like, I want to try, and I'm like, I'm gonna help you make a level 3 character, and we're gonna sit in a one shot and I'll see if you can hang. It's a great way to siphon through
Love
people.
that.
But I had a girl that I like ended up taking on one of these dates, and we showed up, and it was actually like one of the days that it was like pretty dead, and it was just like one group that was having their like regular campaign, and then one DM who was on standby in case people showed up. And so it was just me and her, and he's like, well, I mean, if you all want to play, I could run like a little 2-person situation. And I was like, that's cute, I like that. And it was a man. And like we sat there and we did a little one shot where it was like we were working at a carnival or whatever, and like the owl bear got out and stuff, so we went to go track down the owl bear. Found out it was like being kept as a god by these tiny like like pygmy like little whatever monster people, and we convinced them to like just have him return with us and stuff. And like I forget what it was, how we rationalized it, but at the end of the like session we were like, hey, thank you so much, like that was great, that was a fun time. She got to learn in like a very like private intimate space, so she was like being creative and
it was
all
a chill
that stuff.
time. Like you're
and then he like talked to us afterwards, and he was like, like that was really great for me because I have not had too many experiences where I've had people like he expressed to me that he always DM'd for like male dominated tables, and it's always been very like combat heavy focus. And he kind of sat there, and I knew that we were like throwing him for loops with like unique and interesting problem solving,
like RP solutions.
And he would be like, that was not what I expected. And he had prepared for us to like fight these guys, and we were like, no, we're gonna talk to them and we're gonna figure out how to, like, I get that you got my owlbear and you're worshiping him as a god, but maybe there's like some compromise here. We didn't speak their language, but we're like, I'm gonna do charades. We're gonna draw pictures. We're gonna figure this out.
Like the owlbear god has got to return to Fantasy Olympus.
Yeah.
He cannot stay here.
So we threw a lot of like interesting little tidbits at him, and he was like, I really appreciated that, and like I would love to play at more games that are like that. And I was like, boy howdy do I have a
boy howdy do I have.
You're like, don't threaten me with a good time.
I was like,
sir.
you don't know what
Here's
you've asked
my
for,
business
sir.
card. We meet on Wednesdays.
Yeah,
Literally.
100%. 100%.
Well, like we play one of our, like I'm currently in 3 games. I'm in an online game, Ollie's Strixhaven game, the Vampire Masquerade that I run, and then we play like an Eldritch Horror kind of like Western-y game. And that one, well, the DM was like someone Ollie met on a dating app that had only DM'd for men
I have a type.
previously, and like wanted to have a more roleplay focused thing. So Ollie was just going to join the campaign since the guy Teddy, hi Teddy, lives in Houston.
Yeah.
And there was like one other girl, Chrissy, hi Chrissy, who also lives in Houston, that was like in the server and was kind of waiting for them to pull the rest of the party together. And then we all went out to, there's like a mini Ren Festival at Sherwood Forest Fair out in Austin, and we went for like Alyssa and Bex's combined birthday. And then Ollie was like pitching this campaign and like played us a recording of Teddy doing like the deep, Western.
The introduction.
Fucking like, what's Matt Mercer's like cowboy character? McCree voice.
McCree, yes.
It's
yeah,
Daddy.
like McCree-esque, literally, yeah. And so we were all like, cool, so we're all playing this, yeah? And Ollie basically was like messaged Teddy and was like, hi, here's your whole party.
Yeah.
And
He'd been trying to get players for 5 months, and I got them for him in a week.
And we were coming down. Well, you got them for him in like a day, really, finally, with all of us.
People are thirsty.
And
to play
then
D&D,
we were coming.
like,
true.
Yeah.
Well, like, and then we were coming down the next weekend to play Strixhaven. So we're like, because like I come, Bex and I will drive down from Austin to Houston one weekend a month. But, like that's about. I used to go down every other weekend. That's not sustainable. I don't do that anymore.
That's a lot of
But
gas.
It's a 3-hour drive.
Yeah, that was like during the Ravenloft days, and that was a mess. But so we're like, well, like we're gonna be down. Like, do we want to just play the first session? And so he like suddenly, it's like, hey, you have a party, and we're playing.
You got a week
next
to prepare.
Weekend.
Congrats.
So have fun with that. But it's interesting because we kind of hop around with where we actually play, but we play at a kind of like a game store, but it's like one of those stores
D&D
that
game store.
has like a bunch of tables and you can rent out
Local
and play.
Yeah.
So like we rent out. There's like a room,
a private room.
Because when
that's like a
Teddy was
fishbowl.
first like, hey, we're going to play in public. And I'm like, hey, we're going to play with these bitches in a public setting. I'm like, I know we haven't met, but like, we can't be doing that.
We are X-rated.
Not in front of God and everyone.
That's not, there's some things that's just going to be between us.
I could
and
not
everybody's
imagine running
gods.
my campaign. Like, my campaign isn't even, I would say,
Ain't no way.
Like, X-rated bad. But
I'm
No
an
way in heck.
I could
exhibitionist,
not
but
do that in
damn.
public.
Yeah. So like, we are in this kind of like, it's a very like fishbowl-esque room. We're like off to the side, and then the main room is all these tables. Sorry. And so like it's all men basically in there at the open table sitting playing with like a couple women scattered in, and then there's just like this parade of women and queer bitches just circling back through like following Teddy's
Who, by the way, like
Norse
dressed
like
good for a
like
game.
Norse
Amazing.
Vikings like looking motherfucker like back, and yeah, it's a time.
Yeah, the amount of ogling we get through these windows is
I
severe.
sit with my back to the room because I don't
want
want
It's a
to
time.
see
I sit facing.
Yeah,
the
we sit
crowd.
across from each other, and I'm like, I don't want to have to deal with accidentally making eye contact with someone with like the 4 hours that we're here.
Mhm. Perfect. Well, thank you so much, ladies, for coming on. We've thoroughly enjoyed it. Please go check out Slovenly Trulls wherever you get your podcasts. They're bi-monthly, right?
Monthly.
Monthly.
Yeah.
Monthly.
Yeah.
Monthly.
First of every
Perfect.
month. Yeah.
First of every
Nice.
month. Definitely go check them out. And we hope you have a good one. It's a soft reminder that it is just a game. It's not that serious.
It's not that deep.
And I hope y'all have a great one. Bye. Table Talk is a podcast brought to you by Mythos Media Productions, bringing you a new episode every Wednesday, wherever you get your podcasts. Find us on Instagram and TikTok at Table Talk RPG, or check us out at our website, mythosmediaproductions.godaddysites.com. All business inquiries can reach out to us via email at info@mythosmediaproductions.com.